The Naked Truth Report is sponsored by Kathleen Wells on AM 870, The Answer.
Warning, the following program has been rated T for truth.
You can't handle the truth.
Oh, we think you can. Welcome to the Naked Truth Report with your host, truth warrior and mythbuster, Kathleen Wells. The place where we distinguish fact from fiction, where data is used to drive points home, and where Kathleen takes the position that Democrats and black politicians have destroyed black America. Welcome to the Naked Truth Report. Now, your host, Kathleen Wells.
Welcome, my truth warriors and mythbusters to the Naked Truth Report. I'm your host, Kathleen Wells, and I have a guest today. But before I bring on my guest, last week I talked about the fact that, Black America has not progressed in 50 years since the Kerner Commission report, right? I mean, that is so relevant. That is so relevant. In fact, I was looking on social media. I was looking on my Facebook page, and I see that Van Jones is starting a new show tonight on CNN, and his guest is Oprah Winfrey, and a director. I think her name is Ava DuVernay. I think that's her name or something. I think I'm pronouncing it correctly. But the issue is, there was a quote that Oprah said. It's like, you have to stay in the light. What does that mean? What does that mean exactly? You can't be negative, right? What is that? Why is even Oprah, why do celebrities even talk about politics? They're never relevant. Do they talk about, hey, listen, folks, Black America hasn't progressed in the last 50 years. Do they say that? No, Oprah says this is so profound. She says, you have to stay in the light. You cannot get into the darkness. That is like so profound. And everyone is like quoting, oh my God, Oprah told us to stay in the light. Hello. How meaningless is that? How meaningless is that? For 50 years, in other words, black folks have been going to the rib joint, getting ribs with no meat on the bone. They've been sucking on bones for 50 years. And Oprah says, stay in the light. That's so irrelevant. That's so meaningless. That's so empty, right? We need some substance, folks, right? We need some meat on the bones. Would you agree? We need something practical. And my guest is Dr. Claud Anderson, and he's going to be on in a few minutes, and he's going to talk about practical solutions, practical issues, things that are pragmatic, right? Specific things that can be done to improve the lot of Black America. Because talk is what? Cheap, right? So we've had Van Jones, we've had so many people talking, so many commissions, so many reports, so many programs to help Black America, and we're regressing. And my guest, who's coming up, Dr. Claud Anderson, has been saying this for decades. In fact, a lot of Black conservatives have been saying this for decades. But, because they're about the data. They're about the economics. They're about knowing the political history, right? They're not about rhetoric or cheap talk like stay in the light. What does that mean, stay in the light? It's meaningless. It's nothingness. It's null and void. It's nothing. Anyway, I want to play now the Malcolm X. I'm playing another excerpt right now from Malcolm X, and this excerpt is what is the word I want to say? This excerpt is I can't think of the word. It's on the tip of my tongue. It's in tribute. That's the word. That's not a difficult word, but I couldn't find it. This excerpt from Malcolm X is in tribute to Bill, my first caller last week, if you guys remember. folks who listen to the Naked Truth Report regularly remember my first caller, Bill, and he was like denying that Malcolm X would want black folks to vote Republican, remember? Anyway, Sullivan, can you play Malcolm X, please?
In this crooked game of power politics here in America, the Negro, namely the race problem, integration, civil rights issue, are all nothing but tools used by the whites who call themselves liberals against another group of whites who call themselves conservatives, either to get into power or to retain power. Among whites here in America, the political teams are no longer divided into Democrats and Republicans. The whites who are now struggling for control of the American political throne are divided into liberal and conservative camps. The white liberals from both parties cross party lines to work together toward the same goal. And white conservatives from both parties do likewise. The white liberal differs from the white conservative only in one way. The liberal is more deceitful, more hypocritical than the conservative. Both want power, but the white liberal is the one who has perfected the art of posing as the Negro's friend and benefactor. And by winning the friendship and support of the Negro, the white liberal is able to use the Negro as a pawn or a weapon in this political football game that is constantly raging between the white liberals and the white conservatives. The American Negro is nothing but a political football, and the white liberals control this ball through tricks or tokenism, false promises of integration and civil rights. In this game of deceiving and using the American Negro, the white liberals have complete cooperation of the Negro civil rights leader, who sell our people out for a few crumbs of token recognition, token gains, token progress. In the New York Tribune, in an editorial dated February the 5th, 1960, they pointed out that out of 11 million qualified Negro voters, only 2,700,000 actually take time to vote. This means that, roughly speaking, only 3 million out of the 11 million Negroes who are qualified to vote take an active part, and the remaining 8 million remain voluntarily inactive. And yet it is this small minority, the 3 million Negro voters, who help determine who will be the next president. If who will be the next president can be influenced by 3 million Negro voters, it is easy to see why the presidential candidates of both political parties put on such a false show with the Civil Rights Bill and promises of integration. They must impress the 3 million voting Negroes who are the actual integration seekers. And if so much fuss is made over these 3 million integration seekers, what would the presidential candidates have to do to appease the 8 million non-voting Negroes if they ever decided to become politically active? They hold the balance of power. Who are the 8 million non-voting Negroes? What do they want? And why don't they vote? The 3 million Negro voters are the so-called middle-class Negroes, or high-class Negroes, or uppity Negroes, who are referred to by the late Howard University sociology professor E. Franklin Frazier as the black bourgeoisie, who have been educated to think as patriotic individualists with no racial pride whatsoever, who believe in and look forward to the future integrated, intermarried society that is constantly being promised to them by the Negro politician. And therefore, this integration-minded 3 million minority remain an active part of the white-controlled political parties. But it must never be overlooked that these 3 million Negro integration seekers are only a small minority of the 11 million qualified Negro voters. The 8 million non-voting Negroes are the majority, the downtrodden black masses. They have refused to vote. They've refused to take a part in politics because they reject the Uncle Tom approach of the clergy politician leadership that has been handpicked for the so-called Negroes by the white man himself. This clergy politician leadership does not speak for the Negro majority. They don't speak for the black masses. They speak for the black bourgeoisie, the brainwashed, white-minded, middle-class minority, who, because they are ashamed of their race, because they are ashamed of being black and don't want to be identified with black, they are seeking to lose this black identity by mixing and mingling and intermarrying and integrating with the white society. The race problem cannot be solved by listening to the white-minded, brainwashed minority. The white man must try to learn what the black majority wants. The president would be wise to try and learn what the black masses want. And the only way to find this out is by listening to the man who speaks for the black masses. And I can declare to you tonight and to the entire world that the man here in America who speaks for the majority, the downtrodden, dissatisfied black masses, is this same man who so many thousands of our people are flocking toward to see and hear. This same Mr. Muhammad who is labeled by you as a black supremacist and as a racist and as an extremist. If the 3 million middle-class Negroes are casting their ballots for integration and intermarriage, what do the non-voting black masses who are in the majority want? Find out what the black masses want, and then perhaps America's grave race problem can be solved.
Okay, I wanted to play that because the last part was what is relevant and significant to me. Malcolm X said that the president should ask the majority of blacks what they want. You see, he wanted black folks to be politically sophisticated. What do the black masses want? He didn't want us to not be involved in politics. He wanted us to be politically sophisticated. So I played that because when President Trump, it's not about the party, it's about the individual. When President Trump asked the Black Caucus to meet with him, presumably, the Black Caucus presumably reflects or represents the interest of the majority of black folks, but we know they don't. But just go along with me for a while. When President Trump asked the Black Caucus to meet with him, because presumably President Trump wanted to hear their thoughts and ideas and what they wanted for the majority of black Americans, correct? And the Black Caucus, the members of the Black Caucus actually scoffed at the idea. And in fact, most black folks on social media scoffed at the idea of actually meeting with President Trump. Do you understand? So, I think that this proves that, yes, Malcolm X wanted black people to be politically active. And that's something that my guest, Dr. Claud Anderson, talks about: how to use your leverage, how to get your interests, how to be strategic, how to be sophisticated politically, how to get your interests met politically, how Black America should get their interests met politically, correct? Because we've not got our interests met in the last 50 years. That is so clear. And so when you have people like Van Jones and Oprah Winfrey talking about seeing the light, this is meaningless and irrelevant. We need pragmatic action, pragmatic steps to take. And, the Congressional Black Caucus has failed Black America. They scoffed at the idea of meeting with President Trump and negotiating for the interest of Black America. Does that make sense? Anyway, I'm going to bring on my guest. As I said, he's Dr. Claud Anderson. I love having him on the show. He's a regular on my show when I had the liberal show, the Kathleen Wells Show. And now I'm conservative, so I have the conservative show, the Naked Truth Report. So welcome to the Naked Truth Report, Dr. Claud Anderson.
Hi, how are you doing today, Catherine?
I'm very good. I'm very good. I want to welcome you. What I wanted to focus on the fact is that for 50 years, you've been saying this for decades, and this is why I got off. You know, I voted for Obama the first time. I didn't vote for him the second time because after learning your information, I realized that Black folks were regressing and not progressing. And a report just came out in the Washington Post that indicated that we haven't progressed since the Kerner Commission report. You want to touch on that?
Well, to be perfectly honest with you, we haven't progressed since 1860, and even the Civil War, when Black folk were supposedly freed and went into quasi-freedom. You haven't progressed. You're still in the same fixed position. You're still outside and underneath the system. I don't know what when black folks see the entire society moving up. They think that somehow they are moving up. Yes, they move up as collateral beneficiaries. Their status has not changed. They're just simply moving up as the entire society moves up. They're still outside and underneath their conditions. As a matter of fact, not only are they still in that same position, the conditions are worsening, and they grew worse under President Barack Obama. And based on what I heard,
tell us how it grew worse under Obama. Be specific.
Well, very specifically. First of all, he did not. He has done exactly the same thing that every president of the United States has done since the founding of the country. 44 have done exactly the same thing. He excluded, ignored Black folk and benefited all others and moved them up. As an example, that when he came into office in 2006, until when he left office, approximately almost 52% of all the new hirees in the country were Hispanics. At the same time, Black folk unemployment rate was increasing. Black unemployment rate is totally different what's being espoused by Obama and the rest of the society. They keep saying that the Black unemployment rate is only double that of whites. That's a lie. When Obama came into office, the national unemployment rate for Black folk was 35%. That's nationally. And when the unemployment rate was 25% during the Great Depression for white folk, they mobilized every possible resource in the private sector and the governmental sector to bring that unemployment rate down when white unemployment rate hit 25%. Now here's Black folks' unemployment rate was at 35%, 10 points higher than it was in the Great Depression in the 1930s. And yet Obama didn't even address it. And across the nation, it was even worse. In cities like Detroit, Michigan, the unemployment rate was 48%. In Baltimore was 48%. In Philadelphia, in Pittsburgh was 49%. In New York was 52% for Black males, and for Black youth across the country was 87%. But Obama did not address that issue. Instead, he focused on Hispanics, on providing equal opportunities and job opportunities for Hispanics coming to the country. Same thing went into everything he provided benefits for was issues that had nothing in the world to do with Black folk, and he did that intentionally to avoid Black people. And I know a lot of people in the thing like Maxine Waters and Congressman Waters and also Joanne Watson of Detroit, Michigan. City councilwoman asked him, I said, why don't you do something for Black folks? He said, why should I? For me to do something, they got to make me. And Jews didn't make him do anything for them. American Indians didn't make him do anything. Or Arabs didn't make him do anything. He did it because he felt a consciousness to do it, a morality, a moral responsibility to do it. But at the same time, he violated doing anything for Black folk, which left him outside the structure, just as it was when he came into it.
Mm-hmm. And, but yet most Black Americans, he received more than 90% of our vote.
Yeah, but because he violated all the premises of politics. Now, I agree with about 90% of what, 9% of what I just heard Malcolm say, and Malcolm was one of the brightest activists we ever had in the history of the nation. I agree with 95% of what he was saying. Mm-hmm. And, but Obama does what every president has done and every Black politician has done since the founding of the country, and especially after in 1870 when they got a chance to go into national office. None of them addressed the Black issues in this country because they're underneath what it's called a Black Code of Ethics, etiquette, that went into effect, which told Black folk when they went into public office, and three things they could not do. One, they could not address anything pertaining to Black folk singly and solely. Two, that they could not talk about group-based issues. They talk about individual issues. And three, they could not try to hold the white society accountable for what they've done to Black folk during the course of 360 years of slavery. That was a code of etiquette that was put in place in 1870 to the first Blacks who started going into public office after the Civil War ended and Reconstruction had commenced.
Right.
And every black politician, visible black in the country, has abided by that. In conclusion, my point is that the primary purpose, to make it easy for you, Catherine, the primary purpose of politics, and politics in its present form never existed in the face of the earth until about the 1500s. It came in about 8 or 9 years after capitalism was developed in Europe. And the whole purpose of politics was to be able to carry out the new forms of capitalism around the world, period. And it was based on the simple premise of quid pro quo. One thing, which means you watch my back, I watch yours. You wash my hands, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. If I vote you in the public office, you owe me. It's called quid pro quo. One thing, something for something. And nobody, no politician, black or white, that I can only think of one or two exceptions to this statement I'm getting ready to make. It's a broad generalization. Only one or two individuals I can think that tried to break it, and that was Harold Washington in Chicago and Maynard Jackson down in Atlanta, and my friend Colin Powell in New York. That broke it. That says that I must do something for my people. Every other black that goes into politician said that he owes black folk nothing, and he cannot do anything specific for black folk. He cannot practice quid pro quo for black folk. They can put them into office, and they would get nothing. And consequently, blacks have learned that whenever they elect a politician, they don't demand anything, they don't get anything. And that's been true. Even Bill Clinton said the same thing. See, as a matter of fact, I was Clinton's deputy political strategist here in Maryland when he ran. And I ran Jimmy Carter's campaign in Florida and in the South way back when he ran. But Bill Clinton said one day that he was totally amazed that he could become the president of the United States, and black folk never demanded anything for him of substance. They were perfectly satisfied just for him to appear at some ceremonious, symbolic event, or to appoint a few blacks into token positions someplace in government. That's all they ever wanted. So the worst thing you can do is to ask why don't black folk get anything? It's because they simply, first of all, don't demand a damn thing, and the second thing, that they don't understand the nature of politics and the purpose of getting benefits, and I'll talk about that after your next question.
Yeah. Well, the thing of it is that we are not, Malcolm X was asking us back in the 60s to be politically sophisticated, to learn what politics is and how we must use our vote to get what we want. Quid pro quo, right? So,
that's right.
Yeah, and we've never, and another thing that I want to touch on is the fact that when the Civil Rights Act was passed in 1965, was executed in 1965, that same year they executed the Immigration Act of 1965. So it was sort of a hoodwink to black Americans, because as soon as, we got the semblance of gaining something, here come new immigrants on top of black Americans. And Los Angeles is an example. I think the data that I got from you is that for every 10% increase in immigration, black America loses about 1/3 of 1% of her wealth. And there has been a 700% increase in immigration since the 1970s. So Los Angeles is a prime example how black America has lost completely.
And that's why you're absolutely right. That's why they are now a permanent underclass. And if you read the recent book I put out called The Black Reader, History Reader, you look at the first thing it shows you black, according to the labor reports and income reports and wealth reports across this nation, black folk are on the absolute bottom. And going back to what the point that Malcolm X was making and you were making is that, see, the problem is very simple, Catherine. Let me lay it on the line as simple as I can put it to you. The reason black folk don't get anything, and the reason that black politicians, the black civil rights leaders, and other members of the black overclass get off the hook and get by sliding and greasing and sneezing and finger licking is because they never demand what black folk are entitled to. The first thing they should have done is cease and desist messing around with civil rights. Now, that's been corrupted and diluted. Cease messing around with integration. That is an illusion. They should have been saying, what was the primary purpose of slavery? And I've never in 50-some years of national and international politics for this nation, I've never yet heard one single solitary black politician in the history of this world and the history of my experience in politics or in my lifetime ever say, what was the purpose of slavery? And say, now that's what we should be addressing. That's the single only thing that black folks should be addressing. Forget all the other BS that they talk about on TV. Don't ignore it. The first thing you say, what was the primary purpose? The primary purpose of slavery was to systematically to socially engineer black folk into the lowest level of a real life monopoly game, to use slavery as a device for maldistributing almost 100% of all this nation's land, resources, privileges, rights, business, incomes, and controls of all levels of government into the hands of the dominant white society. If you haven't corrected that, you wasted your darn time talking about anything else pertaining to black folk. And never in the history of this nation has it been addressed. They tried to address it for a few minutes after Civil War ended. And when the civil rights group started in 1965, they totally ignored it and tried to put themselves in a position to say, we're not going to deal with, try to correct the primary purpose of slavery. Let's just try to make ourselves appear acceptable to whites so we can get along with them, even though we're still underneath and outside of the system. And if we can just accept that position, get along with whites, and don't push back, don't raise any cane, they won't push back on us, and everybody would be happy.
Mm-hmm. Well, when Trump was campaigning, he had a new deal. He talked about a new deal for Black America. Then once he got this Pastor Darrell Scott into his, circle, that has now been transformed or morphed into a new deal for urban America. That's pushing blacks back again at the bottom of the barrel. Because we need specifically, my listeners, I want you to know that Black America is in a desperate situation. Desperate. And we've been here. Go down the Skid Row. After the Kerner report, they say there's no progress. We're worse. In fact, I just read something that said that the year before the 1965 riots in the Watts section of Los Angeles, a leading civil rights organization had ranked living standards in Los Angeles as the best in the nation for Black families. My parents bought a home in 1962 in Leimert Park. When Detroit rioted 2 years later, the Black unemployment rate in the city was lower than the white unemployment rate nationwide. We've lost any gains.
Catherine, that was not the purpose of integration. Integration was not to provide gains for Black folk. Anybody having a sense should have known that. And see, we have a highly competent, professionally trained Blacks that participating in the civil rights movement, but their vision was not far enough down the road. There's no place in physical, analytical, or political terms that say that if you integrate something into a whole, that somehow that what you integrate becomes stronger. If I take a cup of coffee and integrate cream into that cup of coffee, black coffee, that doesn't make the coffee any stronger, it makes it weaker. Everybody understands you cannot integrate anything and make it stronger. And what they told blacks, so what whites did, they placed a total 100% burden of integration on the backs of black folk. They said, if you want to integrate and come in with us, then you're going to have to strip yourself of everything. Mm-hmm. And so black folk would say, I sure will do it. Mm-hmm. So just as long as I can go in your neighborhood and go to your school and marry you, I'll do it.
Okay, we're going to talk about solutions when we come back. I hear the music. We're going to talk about solutions when we come back. I'm speaking with Dr. Claud Anderson. This is the Naked Truth Report, and I'm your host, Kathleen Wells. We'll be right back.
Are you a local business owner? Are you interested in increasing customer counts and store traffic or increasing traffic to your website? If you answered yes, then you need to advertise on the Naked Truth Report. For more information on how to become a sponsor, please reach out to RJ Beaton at 818-517-KRLA. That's 818-517-5752. Or email us at rj@krla870.com. That's rj@krla870.com. Kathleen Wells, the host of the Naked Truth Report, wants to hear from you. Just like our borders, the phone lines, well, they're wide open. Call in at 866-870-KRLA. That's 866-870-5752. 866-870-KRLA.
Welcome back to the Naked Truth Report. My guest is Dr. Claud Anderson. I'm your host, Kathleen Wells, and he's delivering devastating news to us. Black people must realize the state of affairs they're in. They don't know, most of them. That's what I keep telling folks in Los Angeles to just drive down the Skid Row. I was shocked what I saw. We can't keep our heads in the sand. We have to speak the truth. We have to know the truth. I like President Trump because he talks about deporting illegal immigrants. I like President Trump because he specifically talked about a new deal for Black America. Then you get this pastor in there, Pastor Darrell Scott, and it morphs into a new deal for urban America. Black folks must be specifically targeted. Why? Because we've been in this country 400 years. We fought in every war, and we're going backwards. It is bad. You know, I looked at Ileana Van Zant's show the other night. We had 87% two-parent families during Jim Crow. Now we have 25%. Ileana Van Zant, I mean, these people, they don't have the skills. This is something Dr. Amos Wilson says, that Black folks lack knowledge. We have a responsibility to ourselves. We got to get it together. It's a dire straits. It's a desperate situation. So Dr. Claud Anderson, please talk to me about some solutions.
Say it again. I didn't hear you, Captain.
Yeah, talk to me about how we can make things, how can we make things better? You know, what do we need to do to make things better?
The first thing they do is read those books that I've read. I've spent about 30 years writing books to try to explain all this to Black folk, but half of them don't buy the book, other half don't even read. And they want to know a solution without going to doing the hard labor to find out what it is, and it's all contained in those books. First thing we must do is understand the nature of our situation. As I just told you a few minutes ago, the primary thing that you're playing in a stacked deck. You can't, how in the world you're going to become competitive and self-sufficient in a society in which you've never corrected the primary purpose of slavery. Whites now own and control, as I said, 99.5% of everything in the country. The land from all the way across the United States, that's in the hands of white folks. And all the wealth they got out of that land, the material wealth, is buried in that land. And let me go back in slavery. Let me go back again. As soon as the Constitution was drafted, the first thing they did was they would say, what we're going to do is start building a wealthy nation. George Washington said, give me 100,000 acres of free land. Jefferson said, give me 100,000 acres of free land. Patrick Henry said, give me life and death, but also give me 65,000 acres of land. This nation maldistributed almost 1 billion acres of free land into the hands of European immigrants coming to this country. And in that land was all the materials, the timber, the gold, the silver, the chrome, the bauxite, the manganese, the gas, and the oil. And that has multiplied and doubled and tripled in value every 20 years in this country. It's all inside the dumbest white society. And it's now 87% of all that wealth that was in the land, all the gold, the silver, and chrome, and all the profits that came from 360 years of slavery is embedded inside of the white society in their trust accounts, their land, their capital, their businesses, and transferred through inheritance from one generation to the next. The deck is stacked. 87% is frozen. You cannot get it. Only 13% is up for grabs for Black folk. And Black folk got to compete for that now by continuing influx of immigrants for that 13%. It's almost impossible for them to do it unless they start demanding and say, look, you got to go back and correct the maldistribution that took place. You must go to reparations. And to get that, that's the first thing. Secondly, you must say to operate as a team. You cannot operate as a team unless you have a community. Black people are the only people in this entire nation that don't have not one single solitary community. All you got are neighborhoods. A neighborhood in LA is nothing but like a bucket with a hole in it. You pour water in, it runs out. You cannot compete as a group with no communities. That's why everybody comes to the West Coast in your area in California. The first thing they do is build a community. It's Chinatown, Japantown, Little Saigon, Little Koreatown, in the town, Mexican town, Little Cuba, Little Havana, Frenchtown, Germantown, Poletown, Greek towns. Only Black folk are trying to socially integrate. You cannot compete in Los Angeles. You're dead wood in LA as long as you're integrated. You must come together and build a community. And then that community must set up, the second thing you must do is build an economy. And in that economy, you must learn how to start amassing your own capital by practicing group economics. Make your money bounce 7 to 12 times before it leaves your community, go in anybody else's hands. Right now, you spend 98% of your money in LA, in other people's hands, in Mexicans, Arabs, Asians, everybody in that town. Everybody in LA is living off, every ethnic group in LA is living off of two incomes. They're living off of 100% of their money because they're boycotting you and your community and your businesses, and they're living off 98% of the money that you're putting into their hands. Blacks in LA are trying to live off of 2% of their income. It cannot be done. It's impossible for you to live off of 2% of your annual income. and also never having corrected the purpose of slavery. Black folk on a death road if they don't figure these things out and learn how to practice group economics. And once you build that economy in your community, circulate your money around 8 to 12 times, and then use that money to move into politics. Politics is the next step up. Do not get into politics if you do not have an economy to enforce and demand what you want and hold people accountable. That's what Donald Trump keeps telling you. In this country, you got about 658 white multi-billionaires. You got about 2 blacks. You're playing against a stacked deck. You got to get money and wealth. It's what you own and control that determines your opportunities in this country and what determines your opportunities in L.A. If you don't own and control a darn thing in L.A., you haven't got a darn chance of being able to survive very much longer. You're going to be overrun by immigrants coming to this country who are coming past you at 1,600 miles an hour. Every immigrant, Catherine, that comes into this country and comes into L.A., they get 6 advantages over you. They get that you don't have as a black person. They come past you quick. They get a point over you for being an immigrant. They get a point over you for being classified as whites. All immigrants come to this country are classified as whites, except a few coming in of African descent, and even they get some privileges over you. 3, they classified as a minority. They get another point over you. Point 4, you got a culture that they use to build industries and businesses. Point 5, they use their language to get special privileges with the government. And I go on and on. They come past you with 6 advantages. You get 0 advantages because you've been branded as a descendant of a slave. You're excluded. Everybody's against you. You're the most hated and despised people in this country. So black folk must learn to play this game. You got to learn fast. And the last thing, let me address right quick. And because you're such a wonderful person, I hate to include you. I have to exclude you. Do not proclaim the difference between a conservative and a liberal. Neither one has black folks' interests at heart. Neither one has done anything for black folk in 460 years. Conservatives are as bad off as the liberals. Conservatives are the people who originally enslaved black folk. They were the people who held blacks in bondage. Conservatives come from the word to conserve. To conserve means to hold on to what you got. Say, well, those who don't have would never get. The conservative is the worst thing to be. And that's why when I still see blacks running, claiming they are conservatives, that's like a black person running with the hound dogs while they're pretending to be a friend to the rabbit. I don't have a dog in that fight. There's nothing, neither liberals or conservatives. And blacks.
Well, see, I disagree with you there because I think it's important that black people conserve their families and conserve their money. We don't even have families. Okay. And that's after being with the Democrats for 50 years. We have no family.
That's not an ideology. That is something personal within the black ranks. Blacks have to understand that. It's very difficult to be able to solve your problems at the same time you don't have the resources to determine it, Catherine. For instance, I see blacks always say, well, we're going to cut out the crime problem, non-employment problem. There's only 3 things that an individual black in this country can do, Catherine. They either, at the top level, they can either work or they can have a business. That's the priority they should be trying to get into. That's what you heard me stress that so much with you and I as friends over the years. If they can't start a business game and practice group economics, they must have a job. If they don't have that, they must go down to the second level. The second level, they must go down is the welfare level, food stamps, public assistance. And if conservatives come by and kill off the public assistance, they must go down to the third level. The third level is to commit crime and sometimes and be able to take anything you can get. So every black person in LA in this country must do an elaboration, a combination, or sophistication of 3 things to be able to survive. You either work at the top and have a job or business, or you must go down to the second level, go on public assistance, or you must go down to the next level and steal and commit crime. Well, you cannot do that. Great resources is the key. And that's what determines the black family. The black family, how are you going to have you got a black poverty rate right now for these black children is 38%. 38%. You got a high unemployment rate that's now over almost 50%. You can't hold a family. How are you going to maintain a family? Everybody's attracted to whiteness and get away from white folks and abandon black folks because in this country, the default setting in this country is being white and being as close to white as possible. That's why they're seeking immigration. That's why you have all that mixed marriages out there. The default is being white because there's nobody attracted to black folk. Black folk don't have anything of value. They control and own 1/2 of 1% of anything of value in this country. They haven't got a snowball's chance in the country of being competitive, and it has very little to do with whether you're conservative or liberal. Is that you don't own and control any resources.
Yeah, but that's why President Trump wanted a new deal for Black America, and here comes Pastor Darrell Scott changing that, sort of like using that people of color thing, putting it a new deal for urban America.
Well, you're right. You're right, Catherine. And that's a historical thing. Anytime you don't do anything for black folk, you use very broad and ambiguous terms. You always expand it. That's why the civil rights laws never helped the black folk. Because the Dred Scott decision in 1857, he said, when it said that black people have no rights, the rights are bound to respect. So when the civil rights laws came out in the 1860s, they came out. Those civil rights laws were put in place strictly and solely for black folk. But what they did, they corrupted them and expanded them and tried to pretend they should apply to everybody. And the United States Supreme Court is a major guardian of racism in America. And every time anything comes out to affect blacks, the Supreme Court is the first thing to expand it. They did the same thing with the 13th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, and 9 civil rights laws. Because they expand them, include everybody by making them broad and ambiguous, which is illegal and unconstitutional.
So
let me ask you,
Doctor.
Very specifically say they're for black folk.
So, Dr. Anderson, if you had an opportunity to speak to President Trump, what would you say? What would you ask him? What would you say?
I got about 7 things I would have asked. As a matter of fact, that's quite a coincidence, Catherine, because I had 2 or 3 groups, black groups, I think, 1 or 2 in Louisiana, one again go out in Alabama and someplace else out west. They asked me, said, Dr. Anderson, would you represent us and talk to Trump? I said, I'll meet him in a sequestered place, and I'll tell him straight up what he needs to do. He said, well, we know you would do it because you don't have to kiss his rear. And I said, I wouldn't kiss his rear and get along. And I told him that's some very specific things he should be doing. And I would lay out there. I got 6 things I would demand of him that he does that would effectively put black folk in a competitive position where they can start competing with these other groups. And one of the first things he has a couple of good points, but his ego steps on everything he tries to do. The first thing he should have closed down the immigration laws, because the immigration laws in this country are unconstitutional and they're illegal. Because the 13th Amendment says that black folk must be treated in all manners similar to the way whites are treated. And it says that only people have been negatively impacted by immigration of black folk, then you're not treating black folk the way whites are being treated. The 14th Amendment said black folk entitled to due process rights and to be protected. You're not protecting black folk. You keep bringing immigrants in this country over, so you're violating the 14th Amendment. And the civil rights laws of 1865 and 1866 says that every level of government is mandated, Catherine, to exercise all necessary means to lift the badges and incidents of slavery off the shoulders of black folk. You got all these people pouring into the country getting unearned benefits. There is no justification. There's no legal or constitutional justification for bringing immigrants in this country and giving them all the benefits that have been denied black folk for 460 years. That is illegal and unconstitutional, and black folk should have had their rears whipped for sitting there and let it go down.
But, President Trump is the only one that has addressed that and specifically and explicitly stated that while he was campaigning and even now. And Jeff Sessions is now...
You don't have any black leadership in the country. Yeah, all your black leadership
exactly.
Out in the 1960s.
Right, and that's why I said that Malcolm X asked the president to ask the 80% black folks, what do you want specifically? You see, and when President Trump talked about a new deal for Black America, and when he talked about he wanted to meet with the Black Caucus and most black folks scoffed at President Trump.
Well, see, and that's why they need to change the name from the Black Caucus, because the Pink Caucus, the Black Caucus, has never done anything significant for black folk. All they brag about is what they did with getting the Martin Luther King birthday approved.
Just symbolism.
One biscuit on black folks' table.
Right, and this is why most black folks, they keep calling Trump a racist, but he is the only president that asked for a new deal for Black America. I think that he is the only president that could get white conservatives to get on board with that idea, with that thinking.
Well, see, as I said, I don't have any personal, likes or dislikes against Trump, because I don't have a dog in that fight, so I don't care. But I would hold him accountable, and I do give him credit for being he's the first president that's ever identified black folk as being entitled to benefits and proper treatment. And as a matter of fact, that's what black folks. I have 8 things I would have asked him. I have a contract that I would have put into place, and for Trump. But let me tell you this: what Trump got and what he campaigned on, most of those things he sucked out of a newsletter that I sent to Obama back in 2010. And if you go to the harvestinstitute.org and pull down that letter to Obama. And I told Obama specific things he should do to help black folk in this country. He did not do it. When Trump decided to run, some of the people he knew around him pulled down my newsletter and the things he got now about globalization, anti-globalization trade policies, and also about the immigration policies. And he got that right straight out of the stuff I sent to Obama that Obama never looked at, never did. And I had people walking into the White House and put it in his hands. He did absolutely nothing for black folk. What he's done is left a legacy that white folk will use as a model for the next 200 years. Obama set black folk down back because he did nothing for his own people. And he reminds me so much of the praying slave and the slave. He used to pray and say, well, one day now we hope there will arise among our people a warrior who will know our suffering, will fight our battle. And black folks finally put a black man in office. He ignored them and did everything for everybody else. He spent a lot of time focused on gender issues, ethnic issues, Arab issues, Hispanic issues, Indian issues, and did nothing for black folks.
And gay issues. And the thing of it is that, well, Obama is not a direct descendant of slaves, you see.
That's right.
And neither is Kamala Harris.
And that's why I always use Captain. And that's why I don't use the word African American, because a lot of these other people coming in from the Caribbean and from Latin America and from Africa, they've never experienced what black folk experience. Black folk are special people. They're unique people. They're exceptional people. That's why I said black people. I call them native blacks.
Right.
Do not mix native blacks with any other blacks coming in the country.
Exactly.
Black folk have been in here for 460 years.
Exactly.
And so that's the term I use. And I don't identify with the conservatives or liberals. The only ism I'm into is our ism and blackism. Right.
Well, I know a lot of white conservatives hate to hear that. I know a lot of, liberals have destroyed us. You see, we have been with the Democratic Party for 5 decades. They have destroyed black America. I cannot put that on conservatives.
Well, but see, reason I said I wasn't getting into that because the present Democrats, the present Republicans, they were the Dixiecrats up until the 1950s. They were the people that held blacks in slavery for over 300 years.
No. I said, I read something that I think Dinesh D'Souza said that less than 1% actually switched parties. And in fact, Malcolm X have even said that. The Dixiecrats are the Democrats, you see.
Yeah, that's right. They were originally Democrats. Dixiecrats became the Democrats. Those red states you see in the South, those are the same Confederate states that were represent the first terrorists in America. The conservatives in America were the white conservatives, the Southern Confederacy.
But they were conservative Democrats. They were conservative Democrats. They weren't Republicans.
Well, but see, the Republicans came in only in late 1850s when Lincoln and all them ran for office. They were only in power for about 10 or 15 years. The old Republicans only in power for about 10 or 15 years. The Democrats took them right back out. The Democrats the old Democratic Party stayed in control all the way through slavery, all the way through the 18th, 19th century. But they switched parties when the black folks started leaving the Republican Party and going and becoming Democrats. The Democrats then switched over and walked across the street and became Republicans. That's why the same 12 states you see on the map in every voting column against the blue states, that's the old Southern Dixie's stables system is still in effect. The old Confederacy has again risen. And that's why I don't get into either issue. I don't care about the Republican Party or the Democratic Party. I don't care about conservatives. I don't care about liberals. I only care strictly and solely about black folks and stop everybody from beating up on them for having gays and midgets and everybody else taking over and displacing blacks and getting benefits that black folk have earned. Black folk were the economic engines that drove the development of this country. They're the most deserving people in the country. This whole thing about immigrants coming into the country and the American dream, they're coming here looking for unearned benefits that black folk have been denied now for all these centuries. They're coming here getting them, and this country is still ignoring black folks. So I do give Trump credit for having that much sense to say black folk are entitled. And if I told Trump, the first thing I told him is that you treat black folk as exceptional people. The native blacks in this country are exceptional people. They were the country that built the roads, that built the highways, built the business, picked the cotton, the rice, the indigo. They're the ones who fought in every war. And every war this country has been into, they're the only ones who fought in every war since the Revolutionary War. They're the only people who's never picked up arms against this country. The Southern Confederacy and the Rednecks, they fought this country for a number of times. They're still giving this country hell through legal and extra legal means. Black people are the most dedicated, patriotic people in the country. They've been mistreated and abused. That's why I focus strictly on them. I don't get in this mixed ideologies. Mm-hmm. I don't care about anything but black folk, ourism, and blackism.
Okay. Well, I think, I think that President Trump is a non-establishment candidate. That's why the whole establishment because both Republicans and Democrats are working against Trump, John McCain and Lindsey Graham and, all the Democrats. So I see him as a non-establishment candidate. I would like you to get in front of President Trump. I would like for you to have so if there's anybody out there listening who can get Dr. Claud Anderson in front of President Trump to have a meeting. In fact, President Trump is coming to Los Angeles, I think soon, this week or so, I don't know. But if anyone out there who's listening who could get a meeting with Dr. Claud Anderson and President Trump, but because we are in dire straits. All these Oprah Winfrey's, these celebrities and these talking heads and these Democrats and these black politicians, they're empty. They're an empty barrel. They're useless. Maxine Waters, there's nothing there.
Right. You're right. But see, the same thing is also true on the other side. All these conservatives I see on the Fox, this is useless. You're one of the exceptions. You're one of the beautiful people that got a good mind, a good commitment, and a consciousness about your people and a commitment to help them. But the rest of them on both sides, none of them are worth two damn dead flies, Captain. You're one of the few. But I'll be glad if they get in touch with me. I will sit with them and tell them. I would take a list and say, here are the things I want you to do for black folk. And my primary purpose is I want you to correct the purposes that were put into place during the course of slavery to lock black folk into the lowest level into a barrel, into a social construct that they've been very difficult for them to get out of. And I'll lay out all the different schemes that they run on to keep black folk locked in box while they bring in all these people over them.
Okay.
Talking about gays and all this stuff. Anything over black folk.
Anything over black folks. Well, I want to thank you. We only have 2 more minutes. I want to thank you, Dr. Claud Anderson, for joining me on the Naked Truth Report. It was wonderful. We've got to get Dr. Claud Anderson to Mr. President Trump because, listen, all these other black politicians, all these other talking heads, academicians, they don't know what they're talking about. Even the black preachers and all these, but they don't know what they're talking about. We must be specifically targeted because we got a grave problem. I want to encourage my listeners to go down to Skid Row and see what's happening. I want to play this. Oh, and I also want to encourage you to go to the Naked Truth Report YouTube channel, and please subscribe to the channel and because I want to get the numbers up. We've got to make something happen here, folks. Use my show.
And I agree with you, Catherine. And thanks. You stayed a wonderful, beautiful person, a committed person to your race that you've always been. And if they want to find out about me, tell them to go to thepowernumbers.com and buy those books and start reading them so they can learn some of the things that you already know is well embedded in your mind.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Anderson.
I love you.
I love you too. Good night. Remember, let's see, this is broken vow because Democrats have broken their vow, if they had one, to Black America. Thank you for joining the Naked Truth Report.
I want to know the way she